Welcome to the Autism in Black podcast, where we focus on all things autism and the Black parent experience. Our goal is to always educate, support, and empower parents to advocate for not only their children, but themselves. Hello, and welcome to the Autism in Black podcast. I'm Maria Davis-Pierre, a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida and America's #1 autism advocate for Black parents. I am the founder and CEO of Autism in Black, Inc., where we aim to include the excluded. Today we have Jeniece Stewart, who was raised in Stone Mountain, Georgia. She graduated from Shiloh High School, and shortly after high school, Jeniece started a family which has grown to 6 lovely children. Her kids range from 4 to 16 years of age, including 2 girls and 4 boys. She has a passion for the special needs community, and this passion began with her second oldest son, Christian Garcia, who has autism and epilepsy. She not only saw the need to advocate for the autism and epilepsy community, but for the entire family in the special needs community. This is when she formed Special Needs Siblings, Inc. Special Needs Siblings is a nonprofit committed to raising awareness, support, and resources for the siblings of disabled individuals. She continues to lead this charge, and this has led to her evolution. She is now a public speaker, writer, and blogger who fights for both the special needs and minority communities. In the past year, she created JLQ Marketing, which has a focus on helping nonprofits grow. She created this company along with her loving husband, Thomas Dortch III, and they continue this mission to give underserved communities and organizations a voice. I'm really excited having Jeniece on the show to talk about something that we don't often talk about, siblings and how, the diagnosis impacts them. So I am happy to have her on the show, and I hope you all enjoy. Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Autism in Black podcast. Today we have a very special guest who's going to talk to us about a topic that we really haven't covered yet on the podcast, so I'm very excited about that. Today we have Jeniece Stewart, who's going to talk to us about her organization of special needs siblings and more about what she does. Hi, Jeniece.
Hi, Maria. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so happy to have you on the podcast.
I'm really excited to be here and be a part of this. This is really exciting. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. So I have read your bio, but can you tell us a little more about who you are and your own journey as a parent with a child with a disability?
Sure. My son is 15 years old right now. So this started back in 2005. I guess that's about when he was born. And in that first year, between the first year and the second year, 2006, he started to kind of digress a little bit. And I was a new mother, 18, 19 years old, and pretty clueless as to what was going on. But I kept being reminded that he'll grow at his own pace, he'll learn at his own pace. And I was pregnant with my second son, which is Caleb. And I started noticing Caleb was he was learning a little bit faster than his brother. He was catching up on things, and his brother, who was pointing out to his nose and his ears, he kind of started to digress. He got really silent and stopped speaking for a while. And that's when we kind of noticed, maybe there's something else going on. He started having some seizures, and that's between the age of 2 and 3. We ended about 3 years old, and he got diagnosed with autism, epilepsy, and we've been on this journey ever since. So,
oh, wow.
Christian is my special baby, and he has special siblings. There are 5 of them total. I'm married now, so I have a bonus son. So there's 6 of them in all now, and we are all on this journey together.
Yes. And I think, how you phrase it as being on the journey together is such a perfect way to phrase it, because even myself tries to really balance out putting equal attention on my child, my oldest, Malia, who is autistic, and then my twins, who are almost 5, and trying to balance that out. It's been difficult because we know the spotlight can definitely be on the child with a disability, and that's why, your organization is so great. So what led you to start your organization?
Oh my goodness, these children led me. I was pregnant with the twins. I have
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I have Christian, who is 15. I have Caleb, who is 13. Jada is 11.
Mm-hmm.
And about 5 years ago, the twins will be 5 in August.
Oh,
They, I
finally
was pregnant with him.
found a
Isn't that funny? We both have almost 5-year-old twins. So yes, I was pregnant with him, and I started to notice Caleb. He was asking me to take medication and wondering why he couldn't take medicine like his brother.
Mm.
Jada would kind of start. She was really clingy and really to me. So I was thinking like, what's going on with them? And at first it was a lot of, I think I was on the defense as a mom.
Yeah.
Why are you asking for medicine, Caleb? Christian's taking medicine because he has to. You guys should be grateful that you don't need medicine, and not realizing that they are experiencing things that I never experienced as a child. They were always with me in an appointment. They were always in the hospitals with me, with Christian. And I didn't even notice that they had a struggle of their own. And so that's where Special Needs Siblings started. Pregnant with the twins and realizing that my elder children also had needs and they were kind of unmet.
Yeah.
So it was hit with a lot of guilt at first. And then it kind of transitioned to, okay, what do I do and how can I help them? In searching for help, I did not find a lot of help. I couldn't find anything. So then I went to social media because that's where all the answers are, right? So I go online. I'm like, there's got to be another parent out here that's also struggling with this, or maybe they have an answer, or maybe they're adult siblings that I could talk to or ask questions with. And it really started with a hashtag, Special Needs Siblings.
Mm-hmm.
I started asking questions. I started sharing about myself and my children, and parents just started kind of flocking.
Yeah.
Siblings started flocking and realizing like there's a whole space that people don't speak about.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
they're on this journey here, and there's not a lot of support and resources. As a mother, I can find resources for myself,
Mm-hmm.
but there's not a lot for the children in our families, and these children grow up to be adults. And I do not want my children to grow up not being prepared
Mm-hmm.
and not knowing what it's like to communicate and solve conflict and just feel like they're like a burden in the family, like they're extra weight.
Yeah.
And they had these feelings that I didn't even realize were there until we started talking. And it all started with me asking them, how do they feel? And then asking again, how do you really feel?
Mm.
And no, how do you really feel?
Yes.
There was one moment where we all just broke down crying, me and the 3 kids, me and Jada and Caleb. And I apologized because I kind of missed something.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't intentional, but it happened. And that's the beginning of our Special Needs Siblings journey.
Wow. And I know for me personally, and I know a lot of parents as well, that is a worry, that we have, that, there is so much focus on, because rightfully so, there's a lot we have to do with a child who has a disability. There's the doctor's appointments, there's, things we have to do within the school system, all the advocating that we have to do,
Right.
But like you said, there is, for me, that worry that my twins are going to one day be like, there was so much focus on Malia, you forgot about us and our needs as well.
Right. And that's a very true concern for most parents in our situations.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a healthy concern because it kind of brings light to that, something that we should talk about, and there's something we should bring some attention to. And I think it makes us become more intentional with our time with them. So making sure we make the most of those moments we have, because it will never be the same.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something we have to accept as parents and talk to our children about and let them know. I mean, most children accept that. My children, it's not easy, but they know that Christian has needs, and they see him have seizures on a daily basis, and they're concerned too. So I think my trying to protect them from their brother was pushing them away instead of including them in our conversation, and me including them and asking them questions, letting them ask the doctors questions, ask the therapist questions, and making sure that they're a part of this if they want to be, when they're ready. Not forcing it on them, but also not closing that door to that conversation. So it's a lot of communication, a lot of conversations that we've had regarding Christian in particular, but even talking to parents and realizing like, okay, I'm not the only one. I'm not as crazy as I think. So I don't have to have this guilt. Like I'm doing the best I can. And when I know better, I do better. And that's enough. That's enough.
Yes. And that parent guilt is something real as well as the parent shaming. Now, when you had the conversations with your children about Christian, how old were they? Because I know that for me, Malia right now doesn't really understand that she is autistic. We've been, going around while we are so pro, I am all autism and Black, but she doesn't really have the comprehension level to understand that she's different. So we haven't had the conversation with her, but I know that we're going to soon have to have the conversation with her siblings because they're getting older. They're able to ask questions and comprehend on a different level. How was that experience with you?
Well, it's funny because now that I have the twins that are 4, I realized where I kind of could have done things differently with their older brother and sister.
Mm-hmm.
So Caleb, I didn't have the conversation with them until much later. This was probably, it had to be like 2015.
Mm-hmm.
So we're having a conversation. They're probably like 7, 8 years old. Mm-hmm. And I finally started asking, like, do you have any questions about your brother? Have I even talked to you about what autism is? We talk about it. I say we're going to the appointment. We wear a shirt, we talk and we support him. But what is autism to you? Yeah. And so I guess that's kind of where it starts with us, is asking them where they're at. The twins, now they're 4 and they will come and they know Christian's sick or he has a seizure. And we're learning like personal space because he likes to invade theirs, but he doesn't want them to invade his. So kind of, it's small things with the twins now that I'm seeing like, okay, if they ask a question, I will answer it in a way that they can understand. They'll have a seizure and they'll come bring him a pillow or rub his head. And is Christian okay? And they'll put a Band-Aid, or what they call a Band-Aid. It's a sticker. They'll go get one of their stickers and put it on his head or on his leg. And that's their way of just letting him know that they're there. He likes it. I mean, he may not speak all the time, but they communicate in their own way. Yes. And kind of respecting that space and letting them know that, and honoring, their sibling bond and their relationship, and knowing it won't be perfect. Like no sibling relationships are perfect. Mm-hmm. So they will have this like this little rift and these little challenges, but I don't have to kind of like save them from each other in that sense. So I'm very transparent with the kids now. I was not like that with their older siblings. I would tell them like, go in the other room, or I got this, mommy's fine, I have it. And in the end, I'm like, they see frustration on my face, or they see me like going into the room and being quiet for a little bit, or I come out with like some red eyes because it's been like 5 seizures in a row and I'm like overwhelmed. Yeah. And I don't even talk about it. I wouldn't discuss it with them. And now with the twins, I realized I kind of keep it open. I don't go into details. They don't know all his medications and, they don't know every single doctor's appointment, but I will include them in the conversation at their appropriate age level. So I don't close them off at all. And Christian also, it's hard to say because he's nonverbal most of the time. Sometimes he'll get into like he'll talk and say some things for like 3 months, and then he kind of digresses again with a lot of seizures. So it's hard to say if what he understands and what he's comprehended. But I even talk to him like, you're having a seizure? Are you feeling okay? Even if he doesn't answer me, I try and at least include him in a conversation. So the same way I would include him, and they say he's at about like a 3-year-old level, even though he's 15 cognitively. I try and do similar things with the twins. I try and keep that, on that same note. Yeah. And then Jada and Caleb now, they understand what stimming is, and they're older. So they like to be able to share with their friends who also have questions. And I realized that me not educating them was kind of leaving them powerless in their community, in their circle. Because when people would ask them about their brother, they couldn't articulate what was going on. So then they became very defensive and angry and embarrassed instead of proud and, having that pride, like, this is my brother, he's different and it's okay. And this is why he does this. And if you have questions, these are answers and I know. So I think that that's something I would have done earlier with them, but I try and do that more with their siblings now. And we definitely have conversations, and I definitely leave room for questions because I let them know Mama doesn't have all the answers, but we can find them together. If you have a question and I don't have the answer, then we can find the answer, you know? So that's kind of how we do things in our house.
And that's a good point, because I know I find myself, while we are so, pro autism and, standing up and letting people know that there's no shame, I do find myself kind of talking around my kids, like, yes, this is what we're doing, this is what we need to do for Malia, but I never really sat down and had a true conversation. And it's mostly because I have just in my own head have just been like, they're not going to understand. But when I see them being able to understand so much more, I'm like, okay, yeah, I need to get over my own personal hang up and have a conversation with my children. And like, you made some great points about, how they're going to be able to have conversations with their peers regarding their sibling. My kids are pretty close in age, so they're at the same school, can be very defensive and protective of Malia. And I do want to equip them with the words that they can say and use with their peers. So you've made some very valid points that made me think as well.
Well, awesome. I think that's what it is. It's like just realizing like, okay, I have gaps too. Even as parents, I think that's hard for us to, because we have to have it all together all the time. It seems like we're like super moms. We're like trying to do this. We take on the whole world. And then it's like, you ask me a question and I'm like, oh, Jada, how do I tell you I don't have this answer? Or how do I admit that I could have done this better with you? Mm-hmm. And I realized that fear, I had to like let go of that and let them know that it's okay to be fallible. It's okay. Your parents are not perfect either. I'm not perfect. And I'm going to get it wrong sometimes, but then that's what makes us human. And I think that's why siblings, they grow up, most of them, like, they're so empathetic and they're so patient, and they just want to give and help, and letting them know that, one, it's okay to care for themselves, because they give so much in the family that, it kind of feels selfish to ask for something for you, but then also to see your parents, your mom or your dad, grandparents, say that I don't have the answers either. And sometimes I'm frustrated, and sometimes I'm concerned or worried. I think they model us more than they'll listen to what we say. They mimic what we do. So how we treat them and how we talk to them and engage with them, that's what they're going to emulate as they grow and become adults and get older. So I've tried to challenge myself, even with them, like, really just, how can I be more personal? I mean, I'm your parent, we respect each other. Yes, you're going to respect me as your mother, but still, I know you have concerns, and I know you're scared about certain things, or I know you got into it with someone at school. What really happened? What did they say? Or how did that make you feel when someone said something about your brother? I know there was a time he had a seizure, and someone said, is he dead? Is he about to die or something? And they were just really, concerned and really upset. And I had not equipped them for that. And I felt like, what did I do wrong? I thought I was protecting you guys. And this whole time I left you powerless because you weren't educated. And so the same way I try and educate the world, we should be the strongest team. Like, we're a team. This whole journey, we all need each other. And I think that's why siblings are so important in our families, is realizing, like, one day I won't be here, and whether you choose to do things with your brother or not, and I would pray that you would, I can't force that upon you. It's not your necessarily it's not your job. It's something you choose to do. Or I want you to be prepared. I want you to feel educated. I want you to feel proud, about who you are within our family. And it's going to be very different than probably most of your friends. And it's okay. It's okay. And so I think that as we, as parents, grow, encouraging our kids on this journey and letting them see us grow and mold, and not just tell them things. I think that that's very important. So yeah, go talk to them and ask them some questions. They probably know some things they probably know.
But you
watching you, so I'm sure they're.
You bring up a great point, and segues into my next question. I know for me, I do a lot of protection around the twins because I do want to give them that choice because, right now Emily is 8, so we don't know if she's going to be living independently. We don't know if she's going to still be needing to live with us. Right now, so much is unsure regarding her, but we've always wanted to give her siblings a choice in regards to if they're going to be, caretakers or have an active role as much as like we as the parents do. So I think for me, especially in the Black community, because, we're not very keen on homes and things like that. We keep it very in the family. That is one of my major things. And I think that's why I've done not so much talking, because I'm like, oh my God, I want to make sure that I don't put the pressure on them to be like, yes, we have to make sure that Millie is okay when our parents are gone.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a fear that a lot of us have, doing too much. And then do we do enough?
Yes.
And I think by talking, you kind of give them that space and you give them that freedom, because it's not something it's not the elephant that's sitting there.
Yes.
Because one thing I know that in educating, you prepare for anything, but the unexpected, power and preparation, it's everything that we need to make sure that we know that the uncertainties away, like that relieves so much fear and worry. So even if they don't choose, it's like I can make this choice. I can make a solid decision because I've been given all of the options. I see the whole picture clearly. So whatever it is, I'm prepared. And whatever it is, I feel like I made the choice for myself. So mom doesn't pressure me, but also I don't feel guilty. But if I want to help, please let me. Because I found like a lot of adults, they're not even included in conversations until they're absolutely necessary. Like parents are in their 70s, 80s. And, by then it's like we're all adults and I don't even know what SSI is, or I don't even know what the insurance is. I don't know how many appointments. And now all of a sudden I have to get all this at one time at the age of 40 or 30 or 20. Yeah. And, and God forbid, like unexpected things happen. Like what if something happened to me as their mother? And how do they talk to their grandparents or their aunts or their uncles? So I really feel like how your thing is advocacy, education, and support. I'm like, educate. Yes, educate our siblings and let them know that about the disability or about the illness. Answer their questions, because kids have a million questions. If they're not asking you questions, they're definitely thinking about something. So, we might as well talk about it. And I'd rather them get it from me than their friends at school and YouTube and TikTok videos. So those are definitely things that I've seen lately is that my children, encouraging every parent that I know and everyone that's listening, talk. I mean, just like we're on this podcast talking, conversations, they don't have to be real in depth. They don't have to always be super deep, but those just asking a lot of questions and then letting them know that you care about them. And I think that's really what makes a difference is honing in what's unique about your child. The twins, they're gonna like different things. Malia likes something different. I know my kids all have different things that they're into, and so I don't even really like Roblox, but I'm trying to like make a character just to connect with my son. So because he's really into these games, but that's something that he likes. So I just need to know where he's at and educating them, yes, but then also being intentional about my time with them. So like including them in little stuff, even just going to the grocery store by myself with one of them and spending that one-on-one time, asking them questions, asking them about their friends. It's just little stuff, I think, that adds up over time. And I don't think we realize how much those little moments become really big moments when you're looking back.
I agree. And, like you were saying, not preparing them. And I know, especially in our communities, the death topic is very sensitive within our communities. We don't really like to talk about it. And that leads us to not preparing for it a lot of the times. And it leaves our children to have to pick up a lot of stuff, and they didn't really know what we wanted because we never really had the conversation, or we had the conversation where time was limited, and now they have to learn all of this stuff in a very short amount of time. So, like you said, like I'm so big on advocating and educating, and my whole family is educated, and I'm realizing, I'm dropping the ball with these twins, educating them on what they need to know, at their age, and I really need to get that together.
I think we're always working on something. So
yeah, I'm like, oh
we're
my,
always going to be working on something.
these kids probably looking at me having all of these dissertation statements with my family, and they're like, lady, you haven't had one conversation with us. And I'm like, okay, I need to get that together.
Mom, water it down a little bit, like just a little bit. Meet the diluted version.
I'm gonna have to start having some conversations this week with them. But I know we've talked about some of the things of why we need to place certain attention on the siblings, but what haven't we talked about yet about, siblings and why they matter and why we need to focus on them?
I think that just realizing that the siblings in our families, that's going to be the change maker. Mm-hmm. Once we start putting more focus on the siblings and realizing that they provide a lot of that gap in between support, and not just support as in like they're doing things themselves, advocating on behalf of their brother and sister. If we're educating them, they're like their biggest advocates. Mm-hmm. They're their biggest friends. They're their longest living relatives with them. So the siblings are going to outlive most parents. Mm-hmm. And if we haven't equipped them, we're kind of doing a disservice for our child that has a disability, I feel, in my personal opinion. And seeing that going forward, who better to speak on behalf than their brother or sister who's literally lived this journey with them, who sees them. And it's interesting because siblings see each other in a different light than I see them, like as a parent. Mm-hmm. So, like these relationships, like I'll say, Christian, let me help him. And they're like, Mom, Christian could do that. Like, Mom, like, I'm like, no, he just had a seizure. He's like, Mom, like, I can tell, like, this isn't one of those seizures. Like, so I think it's one of the other kind. I think he's going to get back up. Give him a second. Mom, he can do this. So the times where I was feeling like I have to come protect him, they're like, let him do it.
Yeah.
Give him that, and I think that they push each other. So I think by helping our siblings find their voices in their families and giving them that space to speak freely and to be advocates and to be friends and to meet each other and realizing like they're so strong. I think that's going to push all of our movements and all that support to a whole nother level, and realizing that they don't have to do things all by themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing. The siblings, a lot of them sometimes they feel alone. Mm-hmm. And that's what I found is adult siblings, they don't even share like, oh, my brother or sister has autism or cerebral palsy. It's not until they meet me and then, or they see the online link and they're like, oh, wow, I've never known that there's so many siblings out here. I've never met anybody like me in that aspect. So you meet people all the time and you know how it feels to meet somebody that relates to you. Yes. And gets it. Like I know when I met an autism mother, I'm like, for the first time, I'm like, oh my God, you understand me. Like, yeah. I felt crazy. Like I feel like I'm so overwhelmed. And then it's not even to make me feel bad for my journey or anything. It's just to connect with me and to know that I'm okay. Like I'm not alone in this. My brother stays up all night and I have to still go to school in the morning, and this is rough. And nobody gets it at school. But then I have this other sibling, like two cities away, but they get it. And so I can like express that to them. And I can't say this to my mom. I wish I could tell my mom this, but I don't want her to feel guilty for not spending time with me. I get it. I get that she can't, but I still miss her, or I still miss him, my dad. And I wish that they could spend more time with me. But then that's why you need that outlet. They need each other. They need support. And in our community, therapy is not something that people like to talk about.
Not at all.
Siblings need that therapy too. They deserve that. And they deserve that support. And there are a lot of therapists that will treat the child that has a condition or the special need, and they'll see the siblings in the waiting room.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear from therapists all the time, and they're like, do the siblings ever get support? I always want to say something, but I don't know if I'm crossing the line with a parent to ask if they need anything. And I think that if the more we talk about it, I mean, that's where solutions happen. That's where we can kind of like brainstorm, like what are things we can do better? But if everyone's pretending like everything's fine, nobody ever heals, nothing ever gets done, no change ever occurs. So I think that our siblings are crucial. They're crucial to progress. They're crucial to change. They're crucial to support because they live this life. And they live it from their perspective. They're in the trenches with them, So that, I mean, I'm very passionate about siblings and families.
I love it. I do, because I mean, you brought so many great points. Me as a therapist myself, I'm always, we need to be more inclusive of, the family members, the parents, the siblings as well, because, when a therapist gets that client, they are so focused on the interventions of that client a lot of times that they do forget that they have to look at it from a systemic perspective of, everybody working together. So we do need to place more emphasis on making sure, the siblings are getting, an outlet to be able to express their concerns as well, because I've seen siblings that feel like they have to always have it together because the spotlight on the child who has a disability. So they feel like, I need to have it all together because mom and dad already have to deal with a lot with my sibling. And that leads them to anxiety and depression and things like that.
It's very real. I mean, there are siblings that deal with the suicidal ideations. And it's like, why am I even here? Everyone would be so much better if I wasn't here. Then I wouldn't have to worry. That's so scary to think like that you could be sitting here thinking that, but you won't say it. And you're thinking it because of all this. You think that it's a burden to have you here when really you're a blessing in our family and you're a blessing to be here. And we're really happy that we have all of you together. And I think as parents, we kind of think that siblings are okay because they're typical. And they're the normal ones, quote unquote. And we put all these labels, but siblings have special needs too. Like they have needs of their own. So they're not just like their peers. And teachers have to recognize that. The schools, the therapists, the doctors, even as much as saying hello to them when they're at these appointments and acknowledging their existence and then seeing them there. I've been at the emergency room with Christian, and it was so sweet because this nurse came and literally went and talked to his siblings. Normally they'll just sit there and they're all watching. And this nurse didn't say anything to me. She just went and asked each of them about themselves. How are you? How are you feeling? How's school been going today? And, they just take us by surprise. And afterwards, like, Mom, she talked to me. She asked me how I was doing. They brought me some stickers. And you don't realize how much that makes a difference in our families when the community pitches in for something like that. So that's why it's also important. It's not just the family. We can't do it by ourselves. And as parents, that weight of feeling like you always have to do it by yourself, especially in the Black community, we always feel like everybody's so independent. Everybody got it together. We all playing this role, like we're so super, and inside we're cracking. Like, it's like, what? Why do we have to be all together all the time? Why can't we have a strong community? Why can't we help each other out and acknowledge that? I think by having these conversations, you kind of open those windows and you let people know that it's okay. It's okay to acknowledge the sister and brother. Please ask me how I'm doing. Please say my name. When you're talking to the parents, please ask about the other children and not just like, how's Christian and the rest of them? No, like ask about them. Because then, that makes me feel like, okay, I can talk about everything. I can let that weight down. I mean, I might not go into super details, but asking the question makes such a big difference. Kids notice that stuff. Adults notice that stuff. You're not just labeled as that's Christian's brother, or that's she has the one with autism and epilepsy, and then she has the other kids. That's the mom with all the kids, and it's like, okay, all right, well, our community, we need each other, and we need these conversations, and they're not easy to have. And it's going to feel really weird and uncomfortable when you're starting doing things that are different, but it's going to feel so much better when it's all out and when it's healing. And, you know, when something gets aired out and it's like, wow, we can talk about this. Mm. It just feels better. You feel free and more peaceful, and you can like really hone in on the things that matter and being really intentional with your time. And we do that as parents. I mean, everything's on a calendar, everything's scheduled out. And if you have to put your other sibling, you have to put the kids on a schedule and let them know, like, this is your time, period. I'm turning the phone off. Everything's off. You know, Christian's good. I got them together. This is you and me. This is our time. And then another thing is like, I tell parents sometimes a journal. Yeah. Mommy, me journal. And like you write on one page and then you flip it and let them write on another page. Because I have one child, he doesn't like to talk, but he loves to write. So you just got to figure out what works for what works for y'all, you know, what makes them happy and then also makes them feel comfortable. So, yeah, I feel like I'm talking so much.
No, you are. Look, I'm just taking it all in. So, you know, because this is an important topic, and siblings, you know, just having this conversation with you is making me realize how much siblings are left out. You know, my platform is, you know, for Black parents who have been left out, but, you know, their siblings have also been left out as well. And it just this is a conversation that needs to be had. And I've loved the advice and the tips that you've given to parents. But what advice, tips, and suggestions do you have for the siblings who may be listening?
I advise the siblings to speak up. Even if you're scared, even if it feels like nobody's listening, even if you got to write it in a note and leave it under mommy's door at night or daddy and put it to the side and like get it out, speak up, because your voice really does matter. It really does make a difference. All of your feelings are valid. You don't have to put a but behind it, and you don't have to justify it. So I want to encourage siblings to know that their voices are important and their feelings matter. If you're thinking about it, if you're feeling it, it's so important to get it out, because it just festers, whatever it is. Letting mom know I want to talk. Letting mom know, you know, reminding her, Mom, you remember you said that we're going to do this? And giving those suggestions. Like, I think siblings sometimes, I mean, from what I've heard and I've gotten, feedback from siblings is, I wish I spoke up sooner. I wish as an adult, they'll say things like, I wish my mother had said something to me. I wish I saw a therapist. I wish I knew there was therapy for me. Yes. And then also, like, I wish there were other siblings. So if you can find a sibling group or support in your area, so big. If parents, you can find it for them, so big. Adult siblings, so big, to find each other and connect with each other, because there's nothing like somebody who gets your journey. And it's a very unique part of who you are, and there's no denying it. So you might as well just go ahead and embrace it. And that doesn't mean you have to feel like you're responsible, but it's still a part of who you are. You know, we get our parents, we get our siblings. This is what we're gifted with. So, denial is real, fear is real, and it will be very uncomfortable doing things you've never done before. But speaking up it's worth it. Speaking up is worth it, and knowing that your feelings, however you feel, good, bad, you know, your brother got on your nerves, he made you upset, your sister is like, you know, you don't have to feel guilty about being upset with your brother or sister. You don't have to feel guilty about that. And it's okay to not be okay sometimes. And if nobody's ever told you, I'm giving you permission to not be okay. It's okay to not be okay. Trust me, your parents feel it sometimes too. We all do.
You know, and that's a valid point, because, you know, I tell parents all the time, there's so much shaming regarding, you know, us being frustrated or overwhelmed, and people are like, you shouldn't feel that way and you shouldn't say those things out loud. And that kind of shuts us down. And I never applied that to the siblings. They may feel like they can't say certain things either because they're going to be shamed, or feel guilty for saying those things. So that's a good point, to just, let your feelings be heard.
Yeah. And that shame is serious from people, but then also from yourself, because for a while you get all that attention, but then you get to keep going. Yeah. So you find siblings like they get to go to college, and then you see your brother and your mom is still with your brother. Your brother's still at home, or he's still doing things. And you feel, sometimes they might feel guilty. I get to go to prom. My brother never gets to experience this. My brother will never experience this other part. How can I move forward with my life and leave my brother behind or my sister behind? And knowing that those are very valid feelings, like that's something you have to process. And that's why it's so nice to have somebody to work through those feelings with, because it's a lot to do alone. Yeah. And nobody wants to go through this by themselves. No matter the strongest person, none of us make it to the end by ourselves, period. So siblings learn early that, they're stronger together. Then I think that's a very powerful place to be.
Yes. And if you've heard nothing or taken nothing from this podcast, at least take that, find your people. Because I know when I found other Black moms who had autistic children, I felt so validated. Like, yes, you get it. So if you take nothing else, make sure that your child has, other siblings that they can talk to. Or if you're an adult sibling, make sure that you have, your people that you can talk to, because that alone is just having a supportive network that means the world. Yeah. So as we wrap up, where can the people listening find you?
They can find us online at www.specialneedsiblings.com. You can find us on Instagram at special_needs_siblings. And we're on Facebook at Special Needs Siblings. And there's a couple Facebook groups that we started recently. So hopefully we're going to start trying to put, people are joining every day. So come and join. We have one for parents and one for adults. Mm-hmm. And then we're working on our teen group, but it hasn't launched yet because we got to make sure it's together. Teen world is you got to be safe with that. But they can find us online there. On Twitter, it's SNS Siblings. And you can find me online at Jeniece Stewart. And my inbox is open. You can send us an email at info@specialneedsiblings.com, or you can call us 470-322-5632.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode and, dropping so many gems for us to think about, because I know I have a lot to think about.
Thank you, Maria. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. I'm just really blessed. And so thank you guys. Thanks for having me on.
And thank you all for listening, and catch the next episode of the Autism in Black podcast. Have a great one. If you haven't done so, make sure to subscribe to our podcast so you can always be notified when a new episode drops. To get the resources shared on today's podcast and the show notes, make sure to go to autisminblack.org/podcast. And be sure to share your takeaways from the show on IG stories and Twitter using our official hashtag AIBpod so that we can find them and share them. And if you want to continue the conversation from today's episode, make sure to join our Autism in Black podcast Facebook community. And please make sure to answer the questions to gain entry. Thank you for listening and joining me this week. Have a good one.